You are now listening to the fastest show on iSports Radio. My name is Daryl Kinsey Jr., welcoming you for the 250th time to take the extra mile with us for today, July 13th, 2023. This is a milestone I didn't think we would ever see in this program, and I'm so happy you all are here with us. And to help me talk about it, of course, Christopher Lehman, Michael Ward. Fellas, take it away.
What's going on, guys? Oh, sorry. Damn it.
No, it's all good. Big episode tonight, fellas.
What's going on, people? Happy 250.
Yeah, happy 250 to you, too. And to everybody in the chat, thank you so much for joining us on this most special of occasions. Make sure you get your comments in. We will read them in the chat. And before we get started with everything, I've just got to say that this show has been going for about 7 years now. And I will always remember how we got started, which was I was watching the 24 Hours of Daytona about 7 years ago. And I'm sitting there doing my usual thing, which is blow up everybody's Facebook feeds of what's going on in the race. And Phil messages me, Phil Jones, who's no longer with us. It basically says, hey, are you trying to do a motorsports podcast? Because I know a group that's trying to get a racing show together. And during watching the race, I get into, I think it was a Skype call at that point, with Larry and Phil. They fill me in on what's going on with iSports Radio. We were a lot smaller back then. We didn't have like the full PR team and all the 30 shows coast to coast between different sports and different regions that we have now. Larry gave me the elevator pitch. I said yes. I revived the extra mile, and the rest is history. We've had a lot of great co-hosts with us. Michael, who's been here pretty much the entire way. The ladies, Lolita, and oh my God,
Caitlin.
Thank you. Lolita and Caitlin, who were absolutely hilarious, and they've moved on to bigger and better, and hope they're doing well. And of course, we've got Chris here, who's been with us the last couple of years. Chris, thank you so much for being on with this journey the last couple of years. And all I can say is it's on to the next 250, and I hope you all join us for that journey going forward.
Yeah, it's been in the couple of years I've been here, it's been great. So thank you for having me, Daryl, and Michael too. It's been a lot of fun. I enjoy our Thursday evenings together.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun.
I still remember the first time. I still remember how I got invited to the show. I think I randomly spoke to you one day in a cafe, and I randomly mentioned how I was playing. I think I was playing F1 2014. I think
it was about that time. So I can tell this story. So Michael, we went to Prince George's Community College together here in Maryland, and he randomly sits at the table and starts talking about F1 2014. Instantly, that just draws my attention. And we start talking back and forth, talking about Formula One. When I got the show started, I asked him to come on. He agreed, and we've had a lot of fun since then.
Yeah, that was back when I was a Ricardo fan. I'm still am a Ricardo fan.
And Ricardo's coming back. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. But yes, so happy for everybody. And Taryn, who's in the chat, he's played co-host for us a couple of times. Larry B was also a co-host. Matt White, who scored nearest the win for such a long time for us. Thank you to him. And Sam Davies, wherever he is, he's the guy that got us the Mario Andretti interview that you can still listen to on the reel on YouTube, on the repository. And I think that was the most nervous we've ever been.
Yeah, definitely.
I think we all did well.
To several other race car drivers.
Yeah. And,
we currently watch on TV today.
Yeah, we talked to Mike Harmon, talked to Raja Caruth, Stingray Robb, who's in IndyCar. We got the opportunity to talk to a lot of great folks in this sport. And we want to try to bring that to you. We want to try to build on this as we head towards the next 250. So make sure you join us on this ride. It's been a lot of fun. And we're going to keep on motoring. And we're going to get into now, obviously, talking to what happened last week. We'll start with actually Formula One. We're going to start with some news in Formula One because Nick DeVries, y'all, he's gone. Daniel Ricciardo going to be in that seat from Hungary going forward. Chris, this is your team, so we'll start with you. How did you feel when you heard the news that Ricciardo's coming back, although in the junior team for Red Bull?
So at first I thought that DeVries kind of got an unfair shake. But then I actually listened to the P1, which is the formerly WTF1. Tommy and Matt, they got their own thing now. I listened to them and they kind of like presented a different viewpoint than I originally had thought of. And I kind of side more with them now, where Nick knew what he was getting into with that seat. When you join a Red Bull affiliated team, you know that it's time to perform or you'll get tossed out. Apparently, he wasn't hitting the sim markers that they wanted him to hit, and then just kind of finishing behind Yuki in every measurable metric. Probably the worst of the rookies. If I don't have my stats up, but I think he was overall probably the worst of the three rookies.
We'll stop right there. Look at where the car is, though.
Oh,
compared to everybody else,
without a doubt.
Yeah.
And then Daniel put up some crazy times during the tire test at Silverstone, and the fate was kind of sealed from there. And it feels like maybe Red Bull. I feel like they know what they're doing, but they're not being the most well thought. Not even necessarily well thought out. It's hard to see what their vision is right now.
Well, their vision is simple. It's Max Verstappen wins championships, and we don't really care about the second seat with Red Bull or really what's going on with AlphaTauri.
I concur. I think what their vision is really is they want a clear number one and a number two that can keep up with the number one.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Yeah, go ahead.
And Checo's not delivering right now.
Yeah, and he's not. Well, actually, would you say he's not delivering? Because as long as he's scoring points,
the thing with
Max is doing.
Here's the thing: those two cars should be finishing 1-2 every race, and they should also be qualifying between first and third every race.
Well, the issue with Checo is he's had some of the worst qualifying luck I have seen in quite some time. He got caught out. Austria got caught out with the just horrendous track limits they had there. This most recent race in Silverstone, he had made his run on the wet tires, was coming back out to do the dry tire run. He was going to get into Q2. And Bottas has a Bottas moment in the Alfa Romeo, which is the engine dies. As he's running the lap, double yellow flags, lap is done. So I don't think it's an issue of Checo's not performing. He's just had piss poor luck, and that's putting it mildly, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's just, the times in which he's gone out to qualify has been what's really been getting him. Because if you look at Silverstone, he comes out, he does his lap, but then, you have the double wave flags, and then you also have track evolution. And, Silverstone's track evolution evolutes. I said evolutes, but it evolves kind of quick to the point where, one lap might be slow, and then the next lap is, 2 times faster. So he didn't have, time to come out to do a second lap like Leclerc did, like Verstappen did, like Hamilton, the McLarens did. And it bit him in the back. I think he needs to focus on, making sure he gets his laps in rather than, thinking that, okay, I'm in the fastest car. Maybe that's not what he's thinking, but, it just seems like, he's in the fastest car. He's going to make it in easily. And it's not that simple.
And we talk about the issues with Checo, just to bring it back to De Vries. That's Checo in the best car. De Vries is in the worst car on the grid, and he is a rookie. I don't care if he's 28. He's never driven a Formula One car before. He's a rookie. I don't care what he's won. Yuki Tsunoda has been here, so he's dealt with the concentrated mid that the AlphaTauri car is. So yeah, he's going to be up there and be a little bit faster and show what the true pace of the car is, which is not that great. The only reason that team has points is because of luck. We know that. We know Checo's had bad luck. But with AlphaTauri, they just missed on the 2023 car. I think we can all agree with that. I don't think De Vries should be getting fired. Go ahead.
You can chalk it up to 2020, I think it was 2020, when Gasly won in Monza. That was still when Red Bull had some say in their development. Mm-hmm. Now they have their own development that they have to worry about. And I think it's time we're starting to see them sort of struggle with developing their car. Because now they don't have that assistance. Right. I think they don't have that assistance from Red Bull anymore that's making them struggle. So now it's just like they have to actually develop their own car. And it's kind of, kicking them in the foot a little bit because they were used to having that assistance from Red Bull, but now they don't have it. So now they're producing slower cars. And if you're, a rookie coming into a slower team, you're expected to, outperform the car. And that's what happens with De Vries. He was expected to outperform the car, but he couldn't. Sometimes you can't outperform the car. And I think, the driver that they're replacing him with should know this personally.
And Chris, we know who the driver is. It's Daniel Ricciardo. He's a veteran. So, yeah, he was putting up times that would have put him on the front row with Verstappen. That was in a Red Bull. An older Red Bull, but still a Red Bull. What should we realistically, for this car, be expecting when they get to Hungary next week?
Beat Yuki. I think that's the first thing that they're going to say is what are the lap time comparisons to Yuki, and then it's just going to be all based off of Yuki. Are you finishing better than Yuki? Are you worse than Yuki?
Is it beat Yuki or Yuki beat him?
It doesn't matter. It's
because I think the goal really of them is to beat each other. I think Ricciardo wants to beat Yuki to potentially get back into Red Bull, but I also think Yuki wants to beat Ricciardo to show that he can handle a veterans competition, and so he wants to go to Red Bull. I think that's what's happening here.
I don't see either of them going to the big team.
I agree.
I don't see either. Yuki's probably going to be at Aston Martin in next year, the year after, which opens up that seat. And so for that, I would say Liam Lawson almost right in. That when Yuki's out of that seat, Liam Lawson's in it.
But when you say that, right, why didn't they, I don't know, why didn't they just bring him in like now?
Because he's in the middle of his own thing.
Yeah, from what I read, they don't want to mess up his development. So
yeah,
they're going to let him finish up.
Yep, they want to keep him down low. They don't want to bring him up and put him in a crappy car and ruin his mentality. So they're keeping him down there where he's doing good. and they're going to put somebody who's a little more headstrong and developed into that car, which would be Danny Rick. So, and then with Danny Rick, I don't see him at the main team again. I don't know what's going to happen with him.
That's
maybe
why
he
this
sticks.
move is just so confusing to me, because it's like you have so many Red Bull juniors who are ready for that seat, and they just go with Danny Rick. And I don't, I like I said at the top of the show, I really like Danny Rick as a driver, but the thing about it is Red Bull is swimming with junior drivers. I don't think they have enough seats to fill those junior drivers. And so those junior drivers do not perform at all next year, the following year after that, they're gonna get axed off. Red Bull has it has a rumor, or a whatever you call it, that it's a meat grinder for drivers.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think about when this type of stuff happens, because we've seen it before. We've seen it with Albon. We've seen it with Gasly. And now we're seeing it with De Vries. Yeah, and Hartley. What's going to happen to these drivers who wanted to race at Red Bull, who wanted to potentially be the next Sebastian Vettel, be the next Max Verstappen? What's going to happen to them?
We need more seats. Is what that means. I mean,
yeah.
And if that's the case, do you just open a third Red Bull team? Like, what are we doing here?
Well, no, we need more teams just in general, so that if these guys do wash out at Red Bull,
aka Andretti.
Well, Andretti and High Tech, because High Tech also put in a form, which, by the way, we were supposed to hear by June about that. It is July 13th. The FIA, why can y'all not hit your deadlines? Anyway.
Because they're trying to up the buy-in, so they're going to delay as long as possible.
Right.
That's another problem I have, but that's just
well, they're just stacking up that antitrust suit at this point. Go ahead.
To try to answer your question about why they didn't bring up somebody from a lower series, Michael, is kind of something we already touched on about the mindset. They don't want to bring them in, put them in that last place car, and just kill their mentality. So, I'm sure that they probably had a discussion with them, especially like Liam Lawson, who is definitely the next person to be taking an F1 seat, I think. And they probably went to him and said, hey, we like what you're doing here, and you're next up, but we don't want to put you into a bad situation, and AlphaTauri is not a good situation to be in.
Right.
Be patient. Your time's coming, but trust us, you would rather be in the best car somewhere else than the worst car here.
You know what is a good spot, though? McLaren. Did you see what they did in front of their home crowd? They almost had both cars on the podium. Lando Norris ran a strong second, led the race at one point.
Right off the get-go.
Yeah, that team, they were at the bottom, but they worked hard in F1 2023 terms. They got a couple of major upgrades that popped all at once, and they are right there. And at least for one race, they look like they might be on par with Red Bull. Probably not for the rest of this season, but they might be a team to watch in 2024.
They found something in that car. They found something.
Yeah, I would say that they're going to climb up and they're going to do much better in the constructors. I think they'll start kind of ripping by people now.
Yeah, I think Ferrari needs to watch out, because they can't afford a 9 and 10 like they did in Silverstone.
I don't even know how to explain that one. They never really looked in it all weekend. Ferrari.
I don't know what was going on with them this weekend.
McLaren's.
Go ahead.
McLaren's 100 points behind. Well, 98 points behind Ferrari right now.
Well, we've seen Ferrari fumble 100 points before.
That's true.
True. We saw them do a lot of fumbling, especially during the Mercedes versus Ferrari era. So this, unfortunately, is nothing new. I think that team is eventually going to fall out of the fourth place or the race for second. Their only saving grace right now is that McLaren is on 59 points. Because if McLaren had any sort of points that was close, they'd be in trouble to fall in the fifth. Which for Ferrari, even with this new team, that is sacrilege in Italy.
Yeah, compared to last year where they got second. So they need to do something with that car, with the tires, with something. They need to do something. I don't know what it is, but something's got to change in that factor.
Speaking of tires, Mercedes, they're up to second. That car is performing, but can they please find some consistency with how that thing runs? They got the new wing and were dog-s slow on Friday, brought it together for Saturday and Sunday, but the biggest Achilles heel for that car, especially last year and definitely this year, you don't know which car is going to be week to week. Is it going to be fast and nimble, or is it going to be Twisted Sister? I can't figure it out what it's going to be week to week, and it's gotten to the point that now they're planning on switching to 2024 development, which they need the extra time because they've got to get this right.
Yeah, I think a lot of teams need to do that, honestly. It's just, the Red Bull's too far away. Maybe work on next year, try to close the gap to them.
Can we just say we didn't McLaren got a lot of love in front of their home crowd, but Williams picks up a P8 and a P11.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's talking about that.
That car...
They should be. They should be talking about that. That's as big of a jump as McLaren took this weekend. Williams did that too. They didn't get the results, but they didn't finish 20th and 19th, 17th, 19th. They finished 8th and 11th. They almost had two drivers scoring points.
Well, remember on Friday, we thought they were going to be on the podium, before the qualification pace came in. But still, that team came out of nowhere with the performance.
That leads me to... I'm wondering if AlphaTauri's got something cooking too. Because let's just think about this. You got two teams who rolled out some developments and made huge progress.
Mm-hmm.
Even three. Let's call it Aston Martin did it too. Aston Martin came in this year with a new car and killed it. So I think what we're seeing is these regulations, one or two good developments can swing you from the back to second or third.
Yeah, we've got to get the regulations though, where they can swing you from from the back to where you're fighting for the lead. I don't need you to be, just sitting. I don't need you to instantly be faster than Red Bull, but at least be up there to where it's an honest-to-God competition. Maybe
McLaren
we let
did
these
that
rules
this weekend.
play out. Yeah, they did, and I think we let these rules
people were too
play
quick
out. It's going to be fun.
I think they were too quick to shit on the rules.
Yeah.
You also have to remember that this offseason, Red Bull doesn't have wind tunnel time.
No, they don't. And that's going to hurt next year.
Which the only saving grace they have is Adrian Newey is an airbender.
Although he might be getting ready to retire soon. And oh, by the way, since they're going to win again this year, that less wind tunnel time goes into next year too. So that's going to be 2 years of down, or at least the start of next season where they're going to be down wind tunnel time.
Yeah. Well, they were down for it this year too.
Yeah.
So they're missing out on a lot of development time. But these rules weren't designed to punish somebody and then 2 or 3 weeks later you see some big result.
Mm-hmm.
These rules were made for long-term damage.
And they are proving it. So we got Hungary coming up next, and then we will hit the Spa and then the summer break. We've already seen one driver transfer. Who do you guys also think is on the hot seat going into the summer break?
No one else really. I think
Lance. Lance isn't going to lose his seat, but he is certainly the next up on the hit list.
Yeah.
They lost, unless Fernando continues sliding. But
Lance is the reason that they didn't hold on to P2 in the constructors.
Well, here's the other thing. Yuki might be coming over there with the Honda deal.
Sorry, I accidentally unplugged my headphones. What'd you say, Daryl?
I say Yuki might be coming over too on the Honda deal.
Oh, he 100% is, but I wouldn't see that until probably like 2024. Well, I guess that'd be next year, but
I mean 2026.
But yeah, he's definitely going though to Aston Martin.
It's gonna be interesting to see how this all works out. It's been fun with Formula One. It was a good race. Thankfully, we did not have any protesters on the track, which would have been absolutely horrific. Thankfully, somebody listened to common sense. Mike Pat in the chat, happy 250.
I think they showed up for practice.
Yeah, but they didn't run out on the track that I saw.
I saw that they tried to.
I think next year is going to be really interesting when it comes to contracts.
Yeah, and we're still waiting for Lewis Hamilton to sign his deal. So just waiting for that to get figured out.
Yeah. That's going to be crazy.
And touching base on what you said, Michael, yeah, it's certainly going to be interesting next season because now you're talking, 2026, the new engine regs, and so how are teams going to play around that? It will be certainly interesting to see.
You have a lot of good drivers who are going to be on the market in after 2024.
Yeah, I was going to say, like half the grid is contracted through next season.
You're going to have Leclerc, Sainz.
I could see one of them leaving this offseason.
Yeah, I think one of them is going to.
Well, Sainz. I would see Sainz.
Really,
Well, Leclerc just do a new contract? Like
apparently he didn't. Apparently it's gonna end in 2024.
Oh, see, I don't know if Leclerc will leave. Just because, like, there's that story about how he told his dad when he was on his deathbed that he had just signed a deal at Ferrari, even though he hadn't. And then the next day he got the call from Ferrari, but his dad had passed the day before.
I understand that, but
So I
don't know.
He can't keep trying to keep a dying horse surviving. He's got to get out of there at some point.
Keep trying.
But I could see Carlos going to Aston Martin this offseason.
Yeah.
That would be my silly season prediction is Carlos Sainz to Aston Martin.
I think, like I said, Charles is holding out for that Mercedes seat just to see what Hamilton does.
It'll be interesting.
I really don't think that seat is as open as people think. They're just being real slow with the contract negotiations.
I don't know, man. If I see the announcement one morning saying Hamilton retires,
I will be shocked.
I'm putting it 50-50.
You know how much of a S show that's going to start? That's going to be an S show.
I could see it going 50-50. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to get either notification on my phone, new contract or retired. However, the one notification that I'm certainly sure I won't see is Lewis Hamilton signs with Ferrari.
I don't think that's
or anybody either, or anybody else for that matter.
No, it's either Mercedes or he's done at this point. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, NASCAR cannot avoid the rain, and I have a controversial take on what they need to do going forward. Talk about that on the other side of this break here on the Extra Mile on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, do you like wine? Well, we've got the show for you. This is Let's Wine About Sports, a show where we talk about wine and sports simultaneously. From the classic Cabernet Sauvignon all the way down to the grapes that you've never even heard of before. Oh yeah, we cover it all. And we'll talk about a little bit of sports as well. Football, hockey, collegiate, women's sports, it doesn't matter. We're going to talk about it all, and we're going to whine about it all. So join me Monday at 8 p.m. on IU Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
It's IE Sports Radio. It is your direct feed for all that is sports. It is Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris every Tuesday night right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris is the most comprehensive view on Philadelphia sports exclusively right here on IE Sports Radio. You know what it is, your direct feed for all that is sports. Tuesday night, IE Sports Radio, Philly Sports Talk with Cash and Chris.
What's up, sports fans? Are you looking for the latest on Northern California sports? Then take a trip out west with me, your host, Gina G, on Reppin' the NorCal Sports, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'll be bringing it to you all the way live every Monday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. And it's always a packed show. I'll bring you everything Dynastic 49ers, the bite of the San Jose Sharks, torture of the San Francisco Giants, the Golden State Warriors that we still believe. Then take you across the bay to the rise and grind of the Oakland A's. I've got you covered.
And we are back here in the Extra Mile IE Sports Radio, your feed for all that is sports. Daryl, Chris, and Michael here with you, talking all things motorsports on a Thursday evening. And we're going to get into Formula 1, but we're actually going to get into NASCAR as once again the rain comes down and causes a delay, this time a cancellation of the end of the race in Atlanta, the Quaker State 400, available at Walmart. That race ended up getting won by William Byron, the rain delay and overtime master. However, we have a much bigger conversation that we need to have, which is the rain is not going away with these NASCAR races. Since we've been on NBC, I think every race at some point has been affected by the weather. We saw what happened with Chicago. Nashville, similarly, had issues with weather. They tried to start early, got caught in it. And here in Atlanta and going into New Hampshire, they've had torrential rain all this week, or for the last couple of weeks in the Northeast, and there's more scheduled for the Loudoun area this week. Actually, the rain is so bad that the SRX race, which they start tonight actually, that was scheduled to be held in Vermont, where they've had torrential rain and just devastating flooding, they're not going to run this next week. They're going to another track in Connecticut. But guys, I say all that to say, with all this weather chasing us and climate change making these summertime storms more of a thing, we are going to need to start investing in an oval wet weather package. Not a damp track package, an actual wet weather package. Because this rain is not going away, and we don't want to start races at 1 o'clock anymore. For some reason, that is the devil's start time. We only run at 3 or Sunday night for some reason. And I can't stand Sunday night races. I'm sorry. I'm with the boomers on this one. Start at 1 o'clock on the East Coast, 4 o'clock on the West Coast, night races Saturday at 7. I don't care about the TV. That's when the races should start. Figure it out. If folks can watch football at 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock, they can figure out how to watch NASCAR at 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock. That's how I feel about it, and I'm sticking to it. But since we don't want to do that, and we are going to run into the time where it is prime time for these afternoon storms, you need a wet weather package that's going to work on all the ovals now. I don't know how that's going to work. I'm not a physicist, but they're going to have to start getting to work on these tires, because we can't keep having these delays or cancellations or moving it to Monday, because that's just going to play havoc with your ratings even more.
Well said.
Yeah, I can't for the life of me figure out why racing Monday at noon is better than racing Sunday at 1.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just an idiot, apparently.
We're just random guys with a podcast, so they don't listen to us. But at this point, your best. Okay, let's take Chicago out the equation, because that race was never going to get started because of the deluge that came through there. Nashville, you wait till 5 o'clock, right in the middle of the storms. Like, they started the race and then the storms hit. And then Atlanta, same thing. You sit there all day with a dry racetrack. You know weather is forecasted. You start the race at 5 o'clock, or whatever time that race started. You only get through 2 stages because the rain comes. Eventually, the juice is not worth the squeeze, because it doesn't matter what extra audience you're getting if they're tuning in to rainfill. I'm sorry. I'm not a TV exec, but given what SAG-AFTRA or Astra just did, should we really be listening to the TV execs? Because it seems they might not have the best ideas right now.
Yeah, and you're getting to the point where you're going to start losing viewership because of the ridiculousness that is the TV. I hardly watch NASCAR anymore. I hardly do. Because it's just ridiculous the amount of, like, it's like NASCAR intentionally is just like trying to sabotage itself. It's like the only way I can think of this, because it seems like every time they have the opportunity to make a decision, they pick the least desirable option. And you'd think at some point they'd say, hey, the decisions that we make don't necessarily work. And people chirp about it on social media and they're sick and tired of it. Maybe we should do this instead of what we were going to do. Like, I really still can't believe that we race 38 races in 39 weeks. Like, that is unfathomable to me. And the fact that the only day you have off is Father's Day. This is why I'm really starting to despise NASCAR, because they're just dumbasses. Is really the only way to put it. They are dumbasses.
I think my issue is the one thing that we've said, they need more off weeks. Having the one off week in the year, that doesn't really help when your season goes from February to November, damn near Thanksgiving, in making the races feel special. I think that's one of the issues that you're having. The lack of track time, I think at this point, is nonsensical. You've already proven you can do a 1 hour practice and go automatically into qualifying. I don't know why we can't do that every week, because they did it at Chicago just fine. But doing it at regular racetracks is apparently a step too far. And I don't think the lack of practice time is helping the show. It's hurting the development of this race car, which you need it to develop if you don't want to be screwing with the rules again at the end of this season. Speaking of which, we've got another test of a short track package on Monday and Tuesday, weather permitting. But there's a lot that NASCAR's got to fix, and that schedule thing is one of them. Now, going into what we saw on the racetrack, I thought was really good. You know, it was truly a 90s style plate race, but you had some comers and goers. You didn't have the gigantic 20, 30 car pileup, and they were racing hard every lap. Now, some of that helped because of the rain that was coming through. And I do not understand why people get so upset with the fact that they go single file to try and save the tires. People, they can only win the race on the last lap. And the Cup drivers are your most experienced drivers. They understand that running 3 and 4 wide on lap 52 and causing the big one, it might be fun for you. It's not fun for them when their car's sitting in there in the garage junk and they don't have a chance to win. But anyway, I digress. William Byron picks up the win. Great run for Daniel Suarez and Michael McDowell, who ended up finishing in the top 5. McDowell ran 91 laps there on the fuel tank to get that finish. And that brings us to the car that is now 3 points out of the playoffs. Mr. Bubba Wallace. The summer slump at this point is complete. They started after the Coke 600, 30 points above the cut line in 15th. They are now 3 points below it. And I'm not as upset as I would be because Chris and Michael heard my rant on Sunday night through the text chat. But my thing is this. If they don't make the playoffs this year, Booty Barker cannot be on the top of that pit box in 2024. Because he has been one of the biggest issues to why that team has not been in the playoffs. Or is currently on the outside looking in. And perfect example, on the penultimate caution, decides to pit and puts them back in the middle of the field where they end up in the wreck with Cole Custer when he lost control of the car going through turn 3 and 4. If you stay out and stay in touch with the 99 and the 34, they've either A, got to get a top 5 right there with them and hold on to their spot, or Bubba wins another race with the rain shortening and end up locking himself in. Instead, now you're in a must-win for the rest of the season. Here's the good news. They finished 4th here last year. Do I think they can repeat it? Not really. Because the setups haven't been that great to start. And there's not going to be a lot of track time this weekend. I can already tell you that. So, guys, I don't know how you feel about how your drivers did, but I'm a little bit disillusioned with the 23's chances at making the playoffs. And really, 23XI as a whole has just been slumping the entire summer.
Yeah, they've definitely not been performing as they were in the beginning of the season.
Yeah, and I'm with you, Daryl. Bowman's been SHIT lately too. So I'm going through my own struggles over here. We're the only, Chase didn't win, but yeah, it's been a crap summer for those of us in the 48 camp too. So I can empathize with you 100%.
I just don't know what you do at this point. Well, they got to improve at this point. That's what they got to do. And we're heading to New Hampshire. This track has become one of the better mile and a halves. This is one of the tracks that the next gen really saved. You now really have a 2-groove racetrack there on the top and on the bottom with a little bit of traction compound that's left, but it should be fun. This race could produce a shock winner, especially if we are chasing the raindrops on Sunday. Because remember, New Hampshire doesn't have lights. Now, we might be able to get racing a little bit sooner because we do have the wet weather tire, or the damp track tire, as they want to call it for some reason. It's a wet weather tire. That's just what I'm going to call it. So we could see, for the first time, that tire on a much bigger track. And I think this could be a proof of concept to run it at other tracks. But here's the thing. Nobody's got experience with it on a speedway of this size. So the way this is setting up, we could have another shock winner this weekend when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how many new winners we're really gonna have.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that this is gonna fall right into one of the Joe Gibbs drivers' hands. I think if I had to guess, my pick is gonna be a Joe Gibbs car wins this race.
Mm-hmm.
I think that they're very good on short tracks. Historically, they're pretty dang good in at Loudon. So I don't know if we'll see a surprise winner this weekend.
For my sake, I hope we do, because it's going to be real annoying third straight year where my driver could have had an opportunity to make the playoffs and didn't. Michael, how do you think this week's going to go?
I'm not sure. There could be a first-time winner if the rain comes in, or someone else can take it. I'm not quite sure what to think.
So before we wrap up for this evening, we'll have to get to nearest the win. We'll have to tweet that out. Unfortunately, Chris has been a little bit busy, so I'm unable to get the link together, but that will be on. We will have our picks out on the Twitter. We're going into IndyCar in Toronto. At this point, I think it's the Alex Palou countdown. And there's been a lot of conversation about where he's going to go, but we will focus on 2023. My question for you guys is simple. Do you take Alex Palou or do you take the field going into this weekend's race?
The field.
The field.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's just only so many you can inevitably win in a row.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the odds are going to be the field.
I think Palou's going to go ahead and lock this up. He's just on another level right now. 3 straight wins. If he makes it 4 straight, give him the title.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's already his anyway.
Yeah, well, he's got a 2-race advantage right now.
Which at this point is pretty good. I mean,
well, we've got 2 Iowa races, Nashville, Indy, St. Louis, Portland, and Laguna Seca. So we've got plenty of races left, but if you are Scott Dixon, Joseph Newgarden, you're running out of time. You have got to find a way to solve this kid because he's going to run away with this before too long. And there's not a lot you can be able to do about it because he's really fast. He's going to look really good in a McLaren next year as he's getting ready to go to Formula One. Because I think that's where he's going to end up.
Yep. I would agree with you there.
So that will wrap it. Before we go, do we have another bit of news? WEC, the Lamborghini hypercar broke cover at the Goodwood Festival of Speed. Michael, did you get a chance to get a look at it?
Yeah, it looks really good, but I only have one problem with it.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it green?
That's their color.
I know, but I feel like it should have been yellow.
I like the green.
All right, I'll give it a chance. Maybe it'll grow on me.
Also, it's green for Italia.
I know.
I like it. There's been
I just can't imagine green on a racing car. That's just me.
Yeah. The question, though, with all these hypercars, how many GT3 spots are we going to have next year in the WEC?
I'm not too sure. Well, with LMP2 getting axed off, I'm sure they'll be able to fill the spots.
Yeah. Well, you can't have that many customer spots, I will say that.
Yeah.
And there's just so much.
So now we have BMW, Lamborghini, and Alpine next year for WEC.
As well as another private Italian team that's going to be joining.
Oh, interesting. So Daryl, it might not have been in Formula One, but I finally get that Italia battle I've always wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So next year we get to see Ferrari versus Lamborghini.
That is going to be fun, and there's going to be so much bragging rights on the line between those two.
So Imola is going to be interesting.
Yeah. The only reason Lamborghini even got formed is because Ferrari trash talk.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only reason why that company exists. And it's been around ever since.
Yeah, Ferrari has a history of getting themselves in a lot of trash talking competitions.
Yeah.
Ford.
Yeah. Which, by the way, go watch Ford versus Ferrari. Before we go, have you heard the synopsis of the Brad Pitt Formula One movie?
No. Is it out? I assume that's public knowledge now.
Brad talked about it a little bit during the weekend. Unfortunately, it's given driven. it's given a lot of Driven right now.
Interesting.
The main synopsis at this point is they are basically Brad's a veteran driver, gets into a crash, is gone for a little bit, joins a last place team looking for direction, and they got this hot new rookie that's trying to make waves in the sport. This sounds like the plot of Driven. Driven was terrible.
This also sounds like Breaking Point.
Breaking Point was also not that great.
Yeah, I want to think about it.
I haven't gotten Formula One 2023 yet. And I haven't looked at the story
this
for that yet.
This sounds like the 2021 one.
Yeah. I really don't know how this movie's going to be. I don't think it's going to be that great.
I was going to say, it's probably going to be garbage, realistically.
I don't think it can get any worse than what Gran Turismo, that movie, is looking like.
Yeah, that looks terrible too. Here's the thing. Does this movie sound terrible? Yes. Am I going to see it? Yes.
Yeah.
Why are you going to see it? Because Cargo Vroom.
Am I going to wait till it comes out on streaming? Yes. I ain't going to the movies to see this. How does this thing even still film with all of these Hollywood people striking?
At this point, it doesn't.
Oh, okay.
So I don't even know when it's going to come out. That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Between the SAG strike and the writer's strike.
And they're on strike as of midnight tonight, right? Or was it midnight last night?
Midnight tonight.
Tonight, okay.
So I have no idea how these movies get filmed.
I think what you're going to see with this is the rise of content creators who aren't relying on studios in Hollywood. You're going to see independent creators on TikTok and social media really take advantage of this, and it might be the tide turning towards away from Hollywood and traditional media into more individualized content.
Well, we're already seeing that now.
Yeah, but I'm saying with this is going to create a huge lag if they don't figure it out like in the next couple days. I mean, even just shutting down for a couple days probably sets you behind a couple weeks.
Oh, it's not going to be a couple days. It's going to be
long term.
This could go through the end of the year because the studios aren't budging. And they're basically like, we'll just wait them out. That's not going to happen. I think they really underestimate how much they've pissed these people off over the last couple of weeks or last couple of years. And it's going to blow up in everybody's face. But to tie it back to this conversation, I don't know what that means for that movie, the Brad Pitt movie. I don't know what it means for the potential revival of Days of Thunder.
Yeah.
We're in a really bad spot as far as movies.
Yeah.
So we're going to get... so it is now 9 o'clock in the East.
Which means SRX is coming on.
Yep. We're going to go check out some SRX. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. Michael's at Michael_War25. Chris is at Fiji Sims if you want to talk to us on Twitter. I am also on Threads at DKinsey1990 if you want to join us. If you want to join me over there as well. And make sure you follow our pages on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you missed any episode of any IE Sports Radio show, you can hear it anywhere where podcasts can be heard, as well as on the YouTube repository, which has a copy of every episode we've ever done. So that'll wrap it up for this week's edition of The Extra Mile. For Michael and Chris, I'm Daryl. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you, God willing, for 250 more green flags. Good night, everybody.